Me and my partners decided to part ways, and I went through a course actually at CFDA. It was all about working more sustainably, designing responsibly. So it was a crash course in sustainable textiles and production and a bigger education about our responsibility to the planet. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to stay in this industry, I know I'm intelligent enough to do it better. You know, I can keep learning. And I think at a certain stage in your career, to have that opportunity is like a gift because you've been doing things a certain way for a really long time. And to be able to approach it anew with fresh eyes and to be able to learn how to do your work differently and to approach it from a different angle, I was so excited by that challenge.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to a Fashion Moment podcast. Whether you're a fashion lover or just fashion curious, welcome. I literally love bringing you one-on-one interviews week after week with your fashion favorites. I get inspired every time, and I hope you do too. This podcast is not sponsored, and all of us here are freely giving our time because we all believe in this and we love it. I would love to continue this great work and bring you even more content, exclusive features, and live events in the years ahead. If you love the podcast or just want to support, buy me a coffee. Yes, a coffee. You can visit buymeacoffee.com/a-fashion-moment to become a fashion friend for one coffee a month, $5, or click the support tab to grab any amount you'd like. Again, that's buymeacoffee.com/a-fashion-moment. Thank you for supporting us. Now on to the show. Hey Fashion Fam, this is a major moment for me, and seriously, there are so many more on the way this season. It's insane how my fashion career has come full circle with this podcast. I mean, it's crazy. I've been following the life and career of designer Tracy Reese for most of my life. And there were so few Black designers who were respected and revered in the industry like she was. I mean, Tracy Reese was one of the first Black designers I knew of who were thriving with a large-scale, multifaceted business model. It was essentially a lifestyle brand carried by some of the top stores in the nation. You may have seen one of her dresses on First Lady Michelle Obama or on celebrities like Sarah Jessica Parker, Tracee Ellis Ross, and Oprah Winfrey, to name a few. I had the honor and opportunity to interview Tracy. I mean, I know, right? Literally a dream come true. I'm pinching myself. I can't believe it happened. So I talked about her life in Detroit, her ascension as a designer, and making the pivot into sustainable fashion. Check it out. Thank you so much for coming on A Fashion Moment. This is, I mean, you're just always such a delight and obviously a fashion legend. So it's a pleasure to chat with you about your journey. How are you feeling right now? I know you have a lot going on.
Yeah, we do have a lot going on. But it's good. You know, the more you do, the more you want to do. The less you do, the less you want to do.
Yes, and your collections have been great, and I get so angry when things fly out the door, and I'm like, oh my God, is that top going to come back, or is that skirt going to come back? So you keep us on our feet with the collections.
I hope so.
Yes. Well, you've had such a long and just amazing career in the fashion industry, which is a rarity. You know, not everyone has the amazing longevity and success that you have. And it's been a journey, I'm sure. So we're going to try to get this all in because your story, I mean, I could go on for hours of questions, but I always love to start at the very beginning. So what was life like
in Detroit. I feel like there's so many fashion people from Detroit. And I say this all the time, like Veronica Webb. She's like, girl, well, Motown, like, it was the spot. So like, what was your experience like growing up in Detroit?
Well, I had a great childhood in Detroit. And, I think unless you're here, I think people don't appreciate, all the city has to offer and all the pluses. But we had a great childhood. And my mom was a native Detroiter. My dad was from Alabama.
Wow.
And my mom was raised a certain way. My grandmother was really supportive of the arts and performing arts. And so my mom was actually a dancer. She was a modern dancer. And I have one uncle who was a trumpet player, another who was an actor and became a production stage manager on Broadway.
Wow.
And my other aunt was dance professor here at Wayne State University. So, they all ended up in performing arts.
Wow.
And my grandma used to take us to plays and to musicals. And, my mom always made sure that we enjoyed all the cultural activities that were available for children here. So we'd go to, dance concerts for young people and, art classes always on Saturdays. And we had piano lessons. We were 3 girls. I have an older sister, Leslie, and a younger sister, Erin. So we were the Reese girls, and we were all over town.
Yes. Is that like a children's book series that's going to come out? Just
right?
putting it out
the
there.
Reese girls.
Watch out, American Girl. You might have a new series. Just saying. Oh my God. So I feel like those cookouts and just family gatherings must have just been so much fun. And
that was fun. And cousins here and aunts and uncles. And so all of that was really great, and cousins my age, which, that's a gift.
Yes.
I was lucky to have sisters. I have, a lot of friends who were onlys and they didn't have that, the benefit of having sisters close in age or brothers, and also, cousins that you're like growing up with. And, everybody has permission to spank you if you're bad.
Of course.
You're in their house, right?
Oh my goodness. Well, your mom, wasn't it your mom who taught you how to sew and create garments?
My mom was a big home sewer. She was a big home sewer, and she sewed for herself always because she had a super curvy figure, like curvy hips, little waist. And she sewed for us, for me and my sisters. Wow. And I would, we'd go to the fabric stores with her and she'd pick out fabrics for us. And, she'd ask us what we liked, what was our favorite color. We'd get to pick a patch that could get sewn onto something, and we'd go through the pattern books. And somehow the sewing and the drawing came together. But I think when I was about 8 years old, she started teaching me how to sew. Wow. And when I was 10, I bought her old Kenmore machine from her for $10. And that's how she operated. It was just like, you need to earn the things that you want, So she said, you can buy my machine from me for $10. And I remember looking at her like, why do I have to buy it?
Right? Really, Mom? So
but it was mine. And I did chores. She gave me a list of chores I could do to earn $10. And that was my machine,
Oh my goodness. So you were checking off the list. Like I got $2 now,
exactly.
mapping it out.
Yeah. All I have to do is scrub those baseboards with a toothbrush and I will have my machine.
Y'all do not miss the baseboards. My grandma had us doing that, and my mom as well. We washed walls, baseboards. It just had to happen.
Right. Take the glass cups off the chandeliers and wash. All the fun stuff.
Yes.
That was the same list of chores I got to do if I missed the school bus for middle school. It's like, no. Man. I'm not driving you to school. You can stay home and do this list of work.
No!
I don't think I missed that bus once. That was that.
Oh my goodness. Jeez Louise. Oh my gosh. So you learned how to sew. Like, were there any sort of like muses for you growing up where you're just like, oh my God, I love the way that person dresses, or like just some of your like go-to, like, ooh, they're so glamorous. I love it.
Really, actually, that was my mom and my grandmother. My grandmother, we used to think maybe she was a movie star because for a while, my dad's job was transferred to Indianapolis. And I was in nursery school because I went to nursery school in Indianapolis, and my younger sister was born there. But she would send us little photographs of herself, little Kodak, those little square pictures.
Yes.
And she would always be posing like, something like this. And either she was wearing a leopard suit, or she'd be wearing a black suit and the handbag and the little black heels, or a white suit. And my grandmother was a professional woman. She worked for the city first for Richard Austin when he was, I forget what his title was here in the city, but then he became Secretary of State.
Wow.
First Black Secretary of State of Michigan. And so she moved to Lansing to be his secretary.
Wow.
And she worked for him for probably 20 years, So she was a professional woman, and she used to take us actually to conventions for it was the National Association for Black Women in Business or something like that,
Wow.
So she used to take us on those trips. We'd all get on the Greyhound. But anyway, for us, she was a really glamorous symbol, and I thought she was a movie star. When you're little and you have no idea, 4 years old, looking at, some glamorous photographs.
Beautiful.
But, they were from an era when people dressed, you dressed to go to work, you dressed to go to dinner, you dressed to go to a concert, you dressed to go to church. And she was always immaculately put together, and if she was buying something for herself and we were with her, that, she would take us shopping. She used to shop at Crowley's, which was Crowley's department store here in Detroit. That was her favorite, and I remember one time we were with her and she bought this slate blue leather coat with a fox collar. We were like, stop. I just love that coat.
That is like so now. Oh my God.
Well, it's not now since we're not doing fur, but
yes, faux. It's faux fur. But oh my God.
Yeah.
Love that.
But those were my fashion icons. And my mom, there was a period when my dad, he was advancing up through the ranks at Chrysler, and, he became an executive, and they had to go to a lot of functions, and my mother would make a dress for every single function. She would be sewing away, and my dad would come from work and the dress wouldn't be finished yet, and she would rush upstairs and take a quick shower while I did the hems. And that's how, things got started. I would do the hems while she was doing her hair and makeup. And then I would have to sneak the dress upstairs because he would be standing around like, we're late. How come you're not ready?
Gotta go. Wow. So you had that down at a very early age. Like, we got to get this dress done.
Exactly. And at the time, it was like Stephen Burrows jersey dresses, with that zigzag stitch finishing. And I could do zigzag, the zigzag was on the machine, but it was actually easier to do a zigzag hem than a regular hem because it covered up a few sins, I'm sure. But yeah, that's how all of that got started.
That's amazing. And it just seems so magical. And by the way, I may steal that like for my kids, like giving them little pictures of me, like in the nieces and nephews.
Exactly. And we have to remember to print pictures now because we're living in this digital world, and I've got like 5,000 images on my camera, right?
Yeah.
And then something happens to that, and where did all my memories go?
Wow. That's amazing. So you learn how to sew. You have this amazing life in Detroit. What led you to go to Parsons? Like, how did that happen? Were you just like, I'm going to go to school for this? Like, what was your family like? Yeah, like we support you. So great. Like, yes.
It was interesting. I had no idea Parsons existed. I had
Wow.
a teacher. I went to a high school that had curriculums. It was all city school. You had to test in. And I was in science and arts, which was like an AP curriculum. But in our curriculum, we could take electives from any other curriculum in the school. And our school had everything from chem bio for anybody who wanted to go into medicine, pre-med. They had air conditioning and refrigeration. They had performing arts, music, you name it, you could pick. And there was a big art department. And as part of the art department, there was a fashion curriculum.
Wow.
Right? I know. And so the head of the art department, Irving Berg, he knew my mom from when my mom was in high school. Wow. And whenever, when I was a freshman, she, was there for parent-teacher conferences, and we passed him in the hall, and he was like, Pat Reese, we've got to get your daughter into the art curriculum, and so, and I was all for it, so I took all my electives in art, and I think I probably took my first fashion class in the 10th grade, maybe. Wow. And there was an amazing director for the fashion curriculum. Her name was Dr. Cleety Taylor. And she's an art collector here in Detroit. She's still with us. She's in her 90s.
Wow.
And she ran the Children's Museum as well. So she, has had quite the career. And she said to me, she said, you might want to consider going to Parsons School of Design in New York for college. I think you've got what it takes. And I was like, what's Parsons, And I applied actually for a summer program.
Wow.
In my junior year of high school. So between junior and senior year, I went to New York for the summer program. And that's when I learned really about the industry because, I think people outside of the industry, fashion is like, I thought it was a hobby. I like to sew, I like to sketch, I like to paint, whatever. I thought it was all a hobby. I didn't realize it was business, that it was industry, and I thought for career, I wanted to do something creative, but I also thought it had to be, serious and highly technical. Yeah. So I thought maybe I'll go after architecture or or maybe even interior design, even though that didn't seem serious, but, but when I, learned more and more about the industry, I was like, hey, wait a minute, this is a business, wow. As well as a creative pursuit. And that made it so much more interesting to me. And, the more my mom read about Parsons, because they were like, okay, I don't know. I mean, if I'd been a boy, I don't think they would have really been, especially my dad. He would not have been, behind me going to Parsons. But I had a full scholarship.
Wow.
And I tell people this all the time. I got a scholarship to that summer program, and then I got a full scholarship for college. Wow. And it was a merit scholarship. And not only did I have the full scholarship, they passed me out of the freshman year. I started sophomore year.
What?
Straight out of high school. I was 17 in New York in my sophomore year of college. And that all of that on the strength of my Detroit Public Schools portfolio.
Wow.
So when we look at the state of all of the fun classes, that have been ripped out of schools due to financial reasons, right?
Yeah.
Once Detroit fell into bankruptcy, and the budgets for everything, were cut, the arts were the first things to go, Yeah. So a lot of schools didn't even have an art teacher or a music teacher. I mean, we had music classes all the way through school. I was in choir. I was, and to think that kids, don't have those opportunities now is like so painful. Yeah. And, they're trying to restore the arts now. They're really pushing hard to recruit art teachers and music teachers for Detroit Public Schools. And, obviously last year was just kind of a wash.
Yeah.
So that kind of slowed that the restoration of some of these arts programs, but there's still so much less than there was when I was in school.
Wow. It's like they saw the talent in you. Like you just had it.
And amazing teachers. And oftentimes that's where it begins. A teacher sees something in you. I mean, my parents were always incredibly supportive. And like I said, I had classes every Saturday. We were busy. It's like, get up, get your chores done, and then you're out of the house. I remember one summer I had to get up and do my chores. I'd have breakfast, then I would ride my bike up to Palmer Park. I had tennis lessons. This was chubby summer between middle school and high school, I think. Or maybe it was between elementary school and middle school. I don't know. I had picked up some weight and my mom was concerned. So I had tennis lessons in the morning. Then I would ride my bike home and have lunch. Then I'd ride my bike up to Ferndale High for swimming.
You on the bike.
Right. So then I had swimming in the afternoon. Then I'd ride my bike home. And then after a month of that, I went to camp for a couple of weeks. So by the time I started school in the fall, I was 3 inches taller and 15 pounds lighter.
Wild.
But we were busy, and I think that's the key too. But we were also out and about, and we had a certain amount of independence, and I wasn't afraid to go to New York. I had my uncle Jerry, who was the stage manager. He lived there full time. And my uncle Stanley, who was a music teacher at the time, was living in East Orange, New Jersey. So they were both really close,
Oh, wonderful.
And that made it so much easier for me in college, because there were a lot of privileged kids going to Parsons, and we weren't wealthy. We were comfortable. My dad provided a really good lifestyle for us, but it wasn't about waste and about a bunch of extra stuff. And literally my mom and dad, I wrote a budget for my expenses in college. It's like, okay, this is how much I need a week for food. This is how much I need for supplies, blah, 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 blah. And I remember I had my lunch budget was $2.25 when I was in Parsons.
Amazing.
And I knew everywhere I could have lunch, I could get, a cheeseburger and fries and a coffee from McDonald's for $2.25, right? You get an egg roll and a wonton soup from the Chinese place.
Amazing.
I could get a bagel and a chicken soup from the deli. I had my whole list down.
Wow. No, it's necessary, especially in New York. Like, what was that experience like at Parsons? Like, you're in this new city. I mean, you have support, but even New York at that time,
right?
For someone who's 17,
in the 80s, right?
And that stark contrast too.
It was exciting because you got to throw yourself into what you loved doing, and the curriculum was very challenging. We had so much homework. We had to carry 20 credits a semester.
Wow.
And all of our classes were like all day classes,
Wow.
And we had to pick up a couple of evening courses, to complete the degree. But, the first year orientation, they called everybody into sections, and I was sitting in the auditorium. They hadn't called my name. And I looked around, there's one other person whose name they had not called. And that was Mark Jacobs. And we sort of looked at each other like, what happened, So same thing. He got passed out of first year. So the two of us got passed out of what they call a foundation year. So the two of us were starting the sophomore program.
Wow.
And so that kind of cemented a friendship. But we loved it. I mean, I remember we had a stern talking to, the first week of school by the department head. Her name was Ann Kagi. And she said, if you don't live, sleep, eat, and drink fashion, then this is not the place for you. And young ladies should wear hose and blah, blah. Then, all of the rules came down. So
wow.
It was a very interesting, but it was like, they weren't telling us anything that frightened us at all. We were all in.
I love it. That is amazing. So like you go to Parsons, I'm curious, sometimes people are like, oh, especially with technology now, like, is fashion school necessary? Like, do I need to refine my craft? Like what would you say was one of the most significant lessons that helped you? Like how was Parsons helpful for you as a designer? And is it necessary now for designers or folks who want to become designers to take a course or go to school for design? I'm just asking.
I think it's absolutely necessary, but it depends on the quality of the education that you can access.
Yeah.
Because a lot of schools have created fashion programs that aren't great programs. And it always hurts my feelings when, I meet young people who are in, kind of substandard programs. So it depends, you've got to find the best quality education you can afford and you can access. But, everything cannot be done digitally. And I feel that a good designer has to know everything about their craft. So that means you have to learn about textiles. You have to learn about construction. You have to learn about finishing. You have to learn about fashion history. You have to, the list goes on. You have to, there's so much that you can't just learn digitally. It's a very tactile industry. It's very trial and error based. You should know how to sew. Luckily I knew how to sew, but Parsons took that to another level as well, so that understanding of construction, is imperative and really understanding, what looks good on the body, how to create the effects that you want. Otherwise, you're the kind of designer who has to rely on everyone else to realize their vision, and you should be instructing others in how to create your vision.
Wow.
So you don't want to be the one who knows the least technically about what it is that you want. And I think that word designer is so loosely and freely used. It's like sustainability, it's like everybody's a designer. Any celebrity who gets offered the opportunity to put their name on a brand, all of a sudden they designed it. It's like they didn't design it. That's not what they're trained to do. They're trained to be an amazing singer or an amazing actor, but they're not trained in design. There's a whole team of people that are being offered to them to do the work, and then they have an amazing stylist who is sort of putting the pieces together for them. But you shouldn't use that term so easily. Designers by definition were problem solvers, so of course, we all are creators and you want to be creative, but the job is to solve problems.
Yeah. And the body, just knowing how to construct a garment on the body. It's like magic. Right. It's really hard.
Well, it is hard. And to learn how to do it properly, you don't even learn all of that in school. A lot of that you learn, throughout the course of your career with other people and technicians that you interact with. So I hate to see the term used very loosely and the term designer applied to anyone whose name is on a label.
So true. It's like creative director. We'll use that instead. Yeah. So you go to Parsons and then, you were interning, working with some of the top brands. You were at Perry Ellis at one point.
Yeah. And that's thanks to Mark too, because I had, I'd worked for a few years at a small contemporary brand called Arlequin, which was owned by a Frenchman and also by Ricky Sasaki, who is like a wheeler dealer from Hong Kong. And well, actually he was Japanese, but his business was called World Hong Kong. But I cut my chops there, cut my teeth there. And the designer for that brand was Martine Sitbon, who, hopefully a lot of people recognize as amazing French designer. And she taught me so much about the work and the actual work, because as great as my education was, the actual day-to-day work was like completely different in so many ways, and the sketching and the portfolio got me the job, but then the actual work was, much more technical. But, I started my own label when I was 24, and my dad, it was my dad's idea, bless his heart, Claude Reese. He was like,
my baby girl is gonna.
He was like, he just literally said to me one day, he was like, you need to do your own thing. And I was like,
that's right. That's right. All Black people. That's what I say.
Hello.
Yes.
And he financed it. And
wow.
I wrote a business plan, and I went down to the Small Business Development Center at Pace University, and they helped me write this business plan, and guided me through creating the financials and answering all the questions that needed to be answered. And I presented that to my dad and to a few other family members.
Wow.
And I also took it to the Urban Development Corporation, and I got a small loan for women of color in business, right?
Wow.
And that's how we financed the first couple of collections. But the market crashed in the late 80s, and at the point where I should have been getting bigger financing or, joining, the umbrella of brands for, another company, just that jump off point. The market crashed and everything just dried up, and we were all struggling. And, so many of my friends had started businesses. That was just the spirit of the times, and Marc Jacobs was interviewing for the job at Perry Ellis. And he was like, I've got to put on this last show. And, he had all of these big plans for this runway show. It was like Miami inspired. And it was like a huge undertaking, and I had just closed my business, and I was like, I can help, so I would just go over there and sew buttons on jackets, and,
so fun.
Clip threads and stuff like that. And then we would go out to dinner. He would take me out to dinner every night on his credit card, and we would kind of look at each other like, I don't know how you're going to pay that credit card bill, but we're having fun tonight. So whatever happens tomorrow happens. But he knew if the show was amazing, he would get that job at Perry Ellis.
Wow.
And the show was amazing, and he got the job at Perry Ellis, and he invited me to come and design the portfolio collection. And he brought in Tom Ford to design Perry Ellis America. So we were all there in this, brand that, had a legacy and a heritage, and Marc was turning it on its ear, and the fact that he brought in a Black woman was well noted as well, because there was no one, and it was very interesting. But that's where I also had the opportunity to design shoes for the first time, which was I've always loved designing shoes. So that was a really great opportunity.
Oh, we need some shoes, Tracy. We got to put that on the list.
Shoes. Yes. Fast forward to next spring, Hope for Flowers, we're doing a sustainable collaboration with Naturalizer. So we have a whole shoe capsule launching. In fact, this inspiration board behind me was from the shoe development. So there's some fantastic styles coming. Yeah. So you can buy them at Anthropologie and at Naturalizer. So
I'm excited.
Yep,
so you're always coming out. Always coming out with something. They are
comfortable and really, really cute. I'm so excited for them.
Oh my God. I'm dying because, I love a naturalizer because they are comfortable, because I have really bad ankles.
Right.
And so I'm like, but I don't want to look too frumpy. So I'm really excited about this situation.
We went for it, and they were like so great to work with. And, they let me kind of do whatever I wanted to do. So it's colorful. It's very feminine, but it's also super comfortable because I told them, look, I don't wear anything much over. Every now and then I might go as high as 2 inches, but I'm all about a sports sandal these days.
Yes. So. Same here. It's either that or a combat boot for me. Like I'm just one or the other.
I was like, I'll play with that last and those flats and that sports sandal and that, so that's, that was the basis of it. But it's like, how do we take that and make it really feminine and make it beautiful and fun and unique? So
I love it.
There's some fun stuff coming.
I'm so excited. So let me like go back. So you're working at Perry Ellis. Like you were focused on, was it the women's wear?
Women's portfolio.
Okay. And
so it was their bridge collection, which bridge, that term has gone, but I know what we would call, what do they call bridge now anyway?
I guess I have no idea. It's a contemporary. I'm still in the bridge era. Like that's what I think automatically. Jeez Louise.
Right.
So you do that, but what led you to just step away and do your own thing? Well, I think that was in 96.
I was hopeful of doing my own thing. And although it was nice earning a salary and having, health insurance and all those good things. But I took a job. Yeah. It was, Perry Ellis was challenging and it was a challenging time for the company. Because Mark really wanted to refresh and reset the vision. And, some people were really resistant to that within the brand. And, it was run in an interesting way. I mean, they would produce the collection so earlier, plan production, and they would plan it, with off-price buys in the buy plan. It was just like, isn't that supposed to be for leftovers? Why are you, it was just weird. And a lot of large companies are run that way, but it was my large company experience. And what I learned from it was that I'm not a large company person.
Well, I mean,
too many cooks in the kitchen. You know what I mean? It's hard to see a vision through to the finish line when everybody has to weigh, so many people have to weigh in on it for so many reasons. And so then what ends up facing the consumer is like watered down and it doesn't have heart anymore. So
we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that in part 2 because so you step away and you're like, I'm going to start my own line. Like I'm going to do this. So what was the first step?
I literally, actually I worked for another bridge company and they put my name on the label, which was good. And I started having runway shows. So that increased my, brand recognition.
Yeah.
And then when I left that company, I decided to start out on my own again. And I started exclusively in dresses. And this was the late 90s. And dresses were just on fire. It was like the most happening department in every store, and we quickly, picked up steam. We were selling Saks and Nordstrom and Barney's and, we had a lot of great specialty stores because I had, great reps. And, then we started slowly layering in, the sportswear. And I met my former business partners who were Indian and they suggested that I go to India and see, what the country had to offer, basically.
Wow.
And I'd never been to India. I'd never even considered going, although I was super curious. And so I took my first trip. And it's like, if you've ever been, India is mind-blowing. I mean, the creativity there is just off the chain. Every community has their own craft and their own expression, so the textiles, first of all, the colors.
I imagine.
I mean, I'd be in the car on the way to the factory or someplace and I'm like, my head is like hanging out the window, just looking at people on the street, the saris.
Wow.
And if you're ever there during wedding season, which is December, I'd stay in this lovely hotel and their hotels, they're 4 stars here, but we're basically what is considered a 4-star there, I would say is a 5-star. You know, it's like very opulent hotels. And the weddings, the guests at the weddings would be wearing the most amazing saris, like just opulent textiles, beautiful beading, color, the jacquards,
I love a jacquard.
Embroidery. I mean, and I was like, oh my God, of course I can do something here, you know. And we would travel throughout India and meeting these amazing craftspeople and artisans. Wow. And, you know, I worked with a wonderful pattern maker there, Kutan Master, my friend, and he would just drape stuff, you know, for me. I would like do the sketching and he would, you know, whip it up, and, you know, I'd be able to go into the room where they were doing the hand embroideries and the beading and just watch it all happen. And so that was just like a creative explosion, you know. So we started a second collection called Plenty, which was all made in India. And then I was able to layer on more embellishments to Tracy Reese, and those pieces were made in India. So that was the foundation for the company, you know. And we had a good 23-year run.
Tracy, I got to ask the question on behalf of the designers out there. What is the key to finding a good rep? So many people have like design. They're like, where can I, you know, or a showroom, like who can sell, like who's gonna, you know, go
it's
toe-to-toe with the buyer.
Trust me. I've lucked out throughout my career, because when I launched my first brand, my former boss was married to one of the best reps in contemporary, in the contemporary market, and she probably twisted his arm to take my line, you know. He was very well connected with Barney's, Bergdorf, and all the best stores, and so we had great placement out of the gate. They trusted him, so then they trusted me. Yes. So that was, you know, really fortunate. When I launched the second time, I had to, actually, no, I had another good rep. I was a PhD, which they did a good job for me. I mean, it's not easy. You have to be very present. You have to be very available. You have to be involved. But they were also, you know, really well-known showroom. And then I moved to the White Room with Amanda, and we decided to have Plenty with one rep and Tracy Reese with another. So Plenty was with Therese Feltus. And they both, you know, they were amazing reps, but it's not easy to find a good rep. And, you know, it's funny. I'm on my way to LA next week for LA Market, and my Los Angeles rep from Tracy Reese is like, you can come and show the line out of my showroom. And, you know, I always tell the story, because when I flew out to LA back in the 90s to get Tracy Reese and Plenty placed, I was politely turned away from several showrooms. And I think that they kind of looked at this Black woman and were like, not confident that I could deliver. Yeah. And they didn't want to take me on, or maybe they just, you know, they complimented the clothes, but maybe they were just being nice. I don't know. Yeah. And Terry, you know, we hit it off immediately, and she was like, let's do this, you know, and she built an incredible business for us out of LA as well. So, you know, sometimes, you know, you do get, you know,
get a little luck.
Sometimes you get dismissed, you know.
And sometimes you get dismissed. Can I just say thank you for continuing to try and paving the path forward? I know, I'm sure in the moment you're like, you know, I got to make it happen. But, you know, there's so many people who are just like, I don't know, like, you know, this industry, it's like, you just got to keep.
But you also have to show, and, you know, you have to show what you can do, and you have to, you know how it is. If you're not doing anything, then nothing happens for you. Yeah. If you're doing something, then then when it rains, it pours, basically.
Yes.
And when people see you pushing and trying to thrive on your own, and, you start to meet with some success, they want to be a part of that, but if you're waiting for a leg up or for someone to create an opportunity for you, 9 times out of 10, that's not going to happen. People always want to get on board with something that's gathering steam, or if they see you, really working to make it happen yourself, then they'll help. Or they'll make suggestions, or they'll give you recommendations, or make a call for you. But if you're just sitting waiting for all that to happen, then everyone feels reluctant. I know I feel reluctant. Everybody wants mentorship, but I want to see what you're doing for yourself first, and then I'll try to carve out some time for you. But if you're just waiting for someone to show you everything, that's draining. That is so draining. It's like, I work really hard to get where I am, to learn what I've learned. And it's not that information is all proprietary, but you're going to have to work hard too. And I can't just tell you how to get to point Z. You need to walk the path, and you need to find some things out for yourself. And on top of it, it's a different world than the world that I came up in. In terms of my career, there are different pathways now. There are people who are achieving things a different way. I mean, look at like somebody like Fee Noel. She started her business, like just totally grassroots, building community, people who admired what she did and loved, what she was creating. And she built a really strong community and a business without going the traditional route, and so her organic business is very strong, and the people who love her and her work, they want to buy it from her. They don't want to buy it from another retailer, to be honest.
It's true. I'm not gonna lie. I know there were some capsule collections, but I was like,
and it's good to get it out there, but she took her own route, so just because I did something a certain way, that worked at that time, but it's a new world. It's a different world. And so, it's open to your own creativity and your own ideas about how you want to manifest your vision.
I have to ask, when you first started your line, what was one of the biggest rookie mistakes that you made when you were first starting out?
So many. Which one?
I like one where you were like, you know what? I'm really never gonna forget nor let that happen again.
I think being really focused on quality, we were so busy, and I should say not being focused enough on quality. We were so busy trying to meet demand that, when we would have problems with quality, it was like, luckily people were loving the brand so much that we got away with a lot more than we should have. And it took years for us to really get a grip on quality control. And I think the other mistake that, it's easy to make because, it's financial is, having enough good people to make sure that the work is being done well. And, it's easy to, all of us are like, okay, but can I afford to pay someone to get this done? It's really hard. Sometimes it's a chicken and the egg situation, but you can't do it all yourself. You don't have the time and you don't have the expertise. So finding ways to collaborate with others to get things done is imperative, because you can't do it all well yourself. And you're definitely not going to be able to grow to the point of prosperity or, all alone.
Yeah.
So I think, you have to spend money to make money. And I think starting out underfinanced, you're always kind of hoping and waiting for a miracle,
Yeah.
and that's a really, really, really stressful way to live.
Absolutely. I mean, just the demands from the buyers, the industry, like before pre-pandemic, it just seemed like things were moving so quickly for designers and they were just trying to keep up. So I can't imagine like having like multiple brands and licenses.
Right.
And be like, how does that even happen?
It happens like working 60 hours a week, really, and driving your team to the brink every season. That's basically how that happens, unless, and it's funny. And I think this is another thing that most designers or people coming into the business don't realize. Once you achieve a certain scale, you are really becoming a manager, and you're much more of a business person, and you're managing, teams. And for those of us who got into the business for mainly creative reasons, the idea of spending, the majority of your time managing others is it's kind of shocking to get to that place. And you're like, wait a minute, but I wanted to be doing, the fun stuff, So I think that, that's a tough, realization.
Wow. Absolutely. So you grow your business. It's doing really well. What led you to the decision to like walk away and rebrand?
Lots of things. I think the universe pointed me to it. I mean,
wow.
We had a good business, but it was contracting. It was getting smaller, and for a multitude of reasons. One, we were a 20-plus-year-old brand, and there's always someone new on the block who, is more exciting and more, more of the moment. So that's natural, but we still had a lot of great retail partnerships. So it was still a substantial business, but I was learning more about fashion's footprint, and learning more about, how we're, really making a mess of the world in so many ways.
Basically.
Textile production is very destructive, and then we're also exploiting labor to bring products in less and less expensively, and that everybody was ended up sort of competing with fast fashion, and that's like that's a race to the bottom, because how can you compete with those prices? But what happened, a lot of the department stores started bringing some, fast fashion partners in-house. And then, your product all of a sudden is twice as expensive as theirs. And your buyer is asking you to try to meet these prices. And it's like, that's not possible.
Yeah.
We can't do that without really wreaking havoc on our supply chain, and then really not having respect for the product that we would be creating, to try to compete with fast fashion. So that was all really depressing and distasteful. And I was like, I don't want to do this, if this is where things are going, and I don't want to be a part of that, because it's exactly the opposite of what we should be doing.
Absolutely.
So me and my partners decided to part ways, and I went through a course actually at CFDA. It was sponsored by Lexus, the CFDA Lexus Fashion Initiative. It's all about working more sustainably, designing responsibly. So it was a crash course in sustainable textiles and production, and a bigger education about our responsibility to the planet. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to stay in this industry, I know I'm intelligent enough to do it better. I can be resourceful. I can keep learning. And I think at a certain stage in your career, that to have that opportunity is like a gift. It's like, because you've been doing things a certain way for a really long time, and to be able to approach it anew with fresh eyes, and to be able to learn how to do your work differently and to approach it from a different angle. I was so excited by that challenge, and I also wanted a smaller business. I want to be profitable. I want to, be able to support myself. I want to be able to pay my team, their value. But I don't want to be everywhere. I don't want to, have a behemoth kind of brand. And I bought a house here in Detroit, and I was, trying to come back and, enjoy my house as often as possible. And I was like, how come, there's no reason why I can't do this here? The world has gone digital, and it's, totally possible for me to do at least a percentage of my work from Detroit. And the more I thought about it, and was, writing another business plan and sort of laying out the structure, and I was like, I can have my design studio here. I can have the back end of my business here. There's no reason why I can't hire Detroiters to do this work and train people to work alongside me to create, this collection. So that's what I embarked upon, and that's what we're doing.
Such a creative business person, I tell you. So like, I'm just curious, what's your creative process? I see the collage behind you. Like, do you go for walks? Do you have a journal? Like, do you like pull swatches? Like, is it a mix? Like, what do you have dreams?
A little bit of everything, and it used to always start with textiles. I would go to the big textile fairs. I would go to Premier Vision in Paris, and there's just one new innovation after another and all these amazing textiles. But now I know that 80% of those are harmful to the planet in some way. So I was like, okay, so much for that. And they're really pushing and trying to ramp up, support for what they call smart textiles, which are textiles that are more sustainable. But it's still, it's the proportion of smart textiles to others is still quite small, maybe about 5%. So that's a little bit challenging. So, identifying what those textiles are, they're linen based, or it's Tencel, or it's Cupro, or it's, there's a short list, and then there's the whole argument for or against organic cotton.
Exactly. Yes. Oh my goodness.
So, but it's a short list of textiles, because I'm not really wanting to use polyesters and the things that are just going to, exist on this planet for centuries. Yeah. They don't biodegrade, period. So it's like, okay, how do we avoid that? Even if it's recycled, there's value in that, but even that process is, chemical heavy. So it's like, okay, so now where do I start? So it does start with color. Color is hugely inspiring to me. And usually, I'll get a sense of a palette that I want to build through, kind of experiencing culture. I was saying we're having a Zoom appointment with Saks Fifth Avenue yesterday, and I was like, actually, the inspiration for spring 2022 was my first trip back to New York.
Wow.
First week of March. I went to the Alice Neal exhibit at the Met. I went to the Grief and Grievance exhibit at the New Museum. I went to see Julie Mouretu and Dawood Bey at the Whitney. I went, I was everywhere. Trust
I love
me.
it.
And I was in the galleries and taking pictures and just soaking it up. And, the colors and the patterns I saw in some of this incredible work inspired the collection. So, that's sort of like, you build a board that inspires you, and, you're looking at vintage clothes, you're gathering up all kinds of inspiration, and then you start sketching.
Amazing. Amazing. So well, first of all, how did you decide on the name Hope for
Hope for
Flowers?
Flowers. It took me a good year to come up with that name.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really, I wanted the name to express, my mission, which, my hopes for the planet,
Yeah.
And aside from that, I just love flowers. But I
Yes.
also feel that, each one of us is a flower. There's a seed in each of us that deserves to be nurtured, and especially children,
Yeah.
so our broader mission encompasses, young people and making sure, that they have some of the opportunities that I had growing up here in Detroit. So we launched, our art enrichment program last Saturday, actually. So providing free art classes for Detroit public school kids on Saturday classes.
I love it. I
Just
love it.
bringing it full circle.
I love it. We used to go to Home Depot. That was like our art class. We would like build
but yeah, all the ideas, but you get plenty of ideas at Home Depot. Plenty of ideas to be had.
It was so fun. It was so fun. But this is amazing. So I'm also curious. Do you have a favorite flower?
Oh wow. So many. I keep Casablanca lilies at my house all the time because they smell so good. I've got, I'm trying to garden here, so I've got hydrangea and you name it, all across my front yard. So I love irises. There's hardly a flower that I don't like. Yeah.
I love it. So
peony season is always
I love a good peony.
Yes.
So how would you describe the Hope for Flowers woman? It's like a very distinct style.
It is. And she's very much still, the Tracy Reese customer in many ways in terms of her aesthetic. She loves color. She loves, sharing her femininity. She's not afraid of that. And being feminine doesn't mean that you're not powerful. She understands that. She wants to be flattered by her clothing. But, I think with Hope for Flowers, she also wants to be a part of doing good while looking good, right? That's what we say. And she doesn't need one more thing. And if she's making purchases, she wants her purchases to mean something.
I love that so much. And you're a board member on the CFDA, and for a while,
for quite some time.
Yeah, I'm like, for a while, you were like the only African American.
Yep, this is true. This is true.
I mean, obviously things have changed and you've seen more members come in. What are your thoughts right now just on how the fashion world is doing on diversity? That's major.
There's some progress has been made, but is it lasting progress? I think, a lot of commitments were made, and I think we still want to see those commitments fulfilled.
Yes.
And Black people, we need to have the opportunities to be a part of all facets of the business, not just working on the sales floor at a boutique or store or chain, but we want to be able to rise through the executive ranks. We want to be stakeholders, and we want the opportunities to build real careers in the industry. So, when you look in the C-suite, there are not that many of us. And, sometimes it's the glass ceiling effect. Sometimes it's, fashion has always been very exclusive industry, and, some of that is starting to break down because it's not modern anymore to be one note, to look only one way, so I'm hopeful, but a lot of work still needs to be done.
Well, we are glad you are a part of the CFDA and have been. It's so funny. Like back in the day when I was like a little girl, I was, I would always do research on anything fashion, anything I could find, like any Black people. I'm like, well, have you heard of Tracy Reese? Like, see, there's a Black designer who's very successful, like doing amazing things. And they're like, Tracy Reese is Black? I'm like, yeah, like this is when I was like a young girl. And, this is before the internet blew up. And so people were just so shocked, like, really? I'm like, yes. So you did such a great job of just like pushing your business forward. Like no one really thought like, oh, Tracy Reese, the Black designer. It was just like, oh, Tracy Reese, like a Tracy Reese dress, a Tracy Reese, blouse, or like, I love the aesthetic. And it's interesting. Most people, like the people like from my little town, they had no idea.
And for some people that maybe was not a bad thing.
Yeah, I know.
I trust me, there were some surprise looks, I would do
when you step in and you're like
appearances here and there. It's just like, oh, I thought and the code was, oh, I thought you were from LA.
Oh my goodness. Oh
like,
Lordy.
Detroit.
I love it. Well, we're so like, it's just the work over the course of your career, just being there, doing the amazing work that you do, just the representation, the excellence, I shall say, is really impactful. It's made an impact on so many of us, especially Black folks in the industry. So we thank you.
Thank you.
I have to give you your flowers while you're here, Tracy.
Thank you, Kirsten.
So I have to ask, this is something that we ask all of our guests on a fashion moment. What is one of your favorite, just one, because I know you have a million, one of your favorite fashion moments of all time? It could be personal, professional, something you witness, but just like a moment where you get like all tingly and you're just like, oh my God, this is fashion. Like this is what I love. Like, this is it.
Wow. It could be mine or anybody else's.
Mm-hmm. Like some people give childhood stories, like Christina Nault gave a great one when she was a little girl. I was like, well, okay, Christina, it was good. So you never know where it's going to come from.
Well, one of my first was, and I didn't even know really what I was stepping into, but my mom and I would go to Ebony Fashion Fair when it came to Detroit, and it was a huge moment. Always we would sew outfits and, to be in the audience watching those amazing shows, and then to promenade during intermission, in our looks, that was a fashion moment.
We've heard this a couple times. I'm like, you know what? They need to bring it back. Marielle Bobo, if you're listening, please bring Ebony Fashion Fair back.
Right? I mean, the rest of the country doesn't get to experience shows, I mean, it's just for the select few, but that show was for the people,
I love it. Well, Tracy, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with us. You're amazing. Can't wait to see all the amazing things you do with Hope for Flowers. I guess I'm just going to have to keep refreshing my screen so that when the new stuff drops, I can get it before it sells out, you guys.
And we're dropping fall as we speak. So everybody, please go to hopeforflowers.com and check it out.
Gotta rush there. So thank you, Tracy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Thanks so much for joining me for this week of A Fashion Moment. If you like what you hear, we'd love for you to join our community of listeners and spread the word about the show. We also want to hear from you. Share your favorite fashion moments and dream guests with us by sending an audio clip or email to afashionmomentpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can tag us on Instagram at A Fashion Moment, and you could be featured on next week's episode. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and let us know what you think. Until then, see you next time for another fashion moment. Podcast production by Rebecca Rashid and John Taylor Williams. Digital media production by Megan Porras.
This recording carries a Creative Commons 4.0 international license. Thanks to Patrick Patricios for their song, Hot Coffee.